Okay, I'll call to order the June 10th meeting of the Harris Township Board of Supervisors. We are starting with a public hearing, but we will, of course, begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me in that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You and I say that the same way.
About that. So the first public hearing, we have two today, is proposed ordinance number 365, amending Chapter 12, Article 14, entitled Signs. If anybody is here to comment about that, now is the time to do that.
Can we have Todd read that in for the record?
Sure.
At the March meeting of the Board of Supervisors, a review was performed of the final draft of the rewrite of the sign regulations, which is 12-14 of the Harris Township Code of Ordinances. In brief, the revision was triggered by court cases that determined sign regulations based upon sign content are unconstitutional. Staff, the Planning Commission, and the Township Solicitor worked for several months rewriting the existing regulations to both eliminate any potential unconstitutional language and provide updates to regulations that had not been significantly altered in decades. As part of the process, staff presented the amendment of the zoning ordinance to the Center Regional Planning Commission at a recent meeting. The CRPC provided a letter in support of the proposed regulations. Absent any major changes, the supervisors can consider adoption of this ordinance tonight.
All right, anybody in the public wish to comment?
I have a comment.
Oh, do you want to save that for the board discussion and the agenda? That's probably more appropriate.
I move we close the public hearing.
So we're
Second.
going to talk about this first.
We'll talk about,
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Second public hearing is proposed ordinance number 366, amending Chapter 5, Article 1, entitled Weed Removal. So, there we go.
At the May Board meeting, staff presented a draft rewrite of the section of the Harris Township ordinance that regulates grass and weed growth, the first such revision of the section in 46 years. Among the proposed changes to the ordinance were deleting the findings and purposes section and restriction sections, adding a definition section, adding a section titled Unlawful Growth of Noxious Vegetation, amending the exceptions section to clarify where the regulations will not be enforced, clarifying who is responsible for maintaining grass, weeds, and other vegetation on properties, adding a recommendation that the height limit on grass, weeds, and other vegetation be reduced from 12 inches to 8 inches, and adding a section that creates regulations for managed alternate planting areas, sections of otherwise regulated properties that are designed and maintained in a more natural manner as rain gardens, meadow vegetation, pollinators, or ornamental gardens. Staff had initially recommended reducing the maximum fine from $1,000 to $250, but decided to recommend keeping the existing fine amount after discussion with the Township Solicitor. Staff changed the maximum jail term in the section from 90 days to 10 days. Recent discussion with the local district justice indicated that his experience with chronic violators is that they become more anxious to comply when he mentions jail time as an accompaniment to monetary penalties. Some supervisors at the last meeting mentioned that they agreed that the 90-day jail sentence in the ordinance was inappropriate. Staff has heard from a few residents since the May meeting who support lowering the maximum height of grass and weeds from 12 inches to something less. Unless major changes are proposed, the board can consider adoption of this ordinance amendment later in the meeting.
Okay, anybody in the public would like to comment about that? Seeing none.
Motion to approve the public hearing. Second.
Okay, all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, first item in regular business is approval of minutes of May 13th public hearing and May 13th regular meeting.
Move to approve those minutes, sir.
Yes.
No, we should probably get a second.
Yeah, can we get a second on that?
Take any comment.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
From 1052 Hall Road and We're having some problems. One with-
Oh,
can I move it?
Bend it down a little bit. There you go.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara from 1050 Linden Hall Road. Having a little bit of problems trying to get into the website, but I realized that the minutes weren't there anyhow to look at. So Deb was good and sent them to me. However, I don't have a printer. So my request is, could I have some time? I am disabled. I may not look it completely, but I need some time to look at them, think on them, make sure that my comments from last meeting are correct and make sense to me. And so I just asked that we could keep them in draft form until next month.
Okay.
At least my comments. I don't know how you do it,
I
but
understand your request. I think the more appropriate thing to do would be for us to decide whether we should approve the minutes or not, which we generally routinely do, and then they're publicly published. If you have any comments on the minutes after they're published, you could certainly bring them up at another meeting or email the board
fine.
about that.
that's fine. I didn't know what your procedure
But
was,
that-
and it was very complicated for me to try and figure out even to get into the website. So I think this is something that really needs to be addressed. I do use a VPN. I should be able to use a VPN because if you're anywhere around the world or in a public cafe or restaurant or anywhere, you should be able to get into a public website. And so this is something that needs to be addressed because it's gone on now. We had a problem back when the development next to me was approved that I was not getting emails, which Mark knows as well. It wasn't coming out to all of us. And I think that's covered under the Sunshine Law. So we need to do better. I was an executive secretary. I'm not ashamed to call myself that. I was a good one. We used paper. It was easy to get it. It's not so easy for some of us to navigate through the computer, through printers, through everything like that. And I'm getting tired of it. So just realize that everything that you put online, everything you want us to look at, it's not easy for some of us. And so I'm asking for an accommodation. And for the most part, Harris Township's been easy to work with over the years, but it's getting more complicated. And I'm kind of losing my patience here. It just seems as far as taxpayers go, we come last. I need an update when we get to the new business, well, I guess old business, whatever you want to call it, it's probably comments. So you tell me what you need to do with this, whether I should stand here or whether I can make my public comment at this time too.
Yes, I have a question for you. If I could just ask you a question. I'm not quite sure what you're saying, but I kind of take offense to say that I'm not
You're new.
accommodating to
You
the-
don't have anything to
Yeah.
do with it.
Okay,
Tracy, you're one of the good
But if
ones.
you're asking for something, like if you're saying to us, I can't really get into the website or I'm having troubles doing that. I mean, is the accommodation, what would you like? Would you like us to
I think-
mail stuff to you? Would you like us, I think that's perfectly acceptable to ask that.
Yeah, and
So,
I thank you. And I did, that's what I
I don't
asked for,
see-
was just to be
yeah.
able to pick it up.
If you're having troubles, then I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah,
understand why
and
we wouldn't be happy to.
you're brand new, so
accommodate.
you haven't been here for 43, almost 50 years, okay? I have. I know of files that are missing and all that kind of stuff, so you don't have anything to do with that, but previous managers, et cetera, things just they just get missed. So, yeah, that's good. I asked for it, and it'll be there. Deb's a great secretary, administrative assistant, whatever you want to call her. And, yeah, no problem, Tracy. No problem.
Okay.
All right?
Well, we do our best to keep information totally accessible, so
It's missing.
if there's an issue
Yeah.
with you getting into the website, we'll
Yeah.
obviously look into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did admit there was an issue with emails,
Yeah,
the Township e-news getting to everybody,
yeah,
and it hadn't, we couldn't do anything about it because we didn't know about it until it was brought to our attention.
yeah, I didn't
And,
either, so.
We will, we certainly strive to communicate with everybody in the municipality that wants to know.
I agree, Nigel. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Do you want me to sit down and then I'll make my comment in the other section? I don't know. I want to get in the middle of your approvals.
No, you're fine. If you're done, thank you for your comment, and we will do everything we can to address your
I
concerns.
have another public
You should take
section.
action on your minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Citizens' comments, yeah.
okay.
So
All
I
right,
I
so-
move to approve the minutes of May 13th.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. So any discussion among the board here? So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, now we get into official public comment. So this is not related to approval of minutes, so please.
Okay, so you know who I am, I know who you are. This is about the Kaywood North subdivision. I guess we'll call it an agreement between the developer and the township now from the September 11th, 2023 meeting, that staff and the new manager, because Mark was brand new, but he was the planner at the time, knew that there was a very large infrastructure that supports the stormwater system. And there was supposed to be an agreement drafted, I assume between our solicitor and their attorneys, and it has yet to be done. And I just wondered, what is the time frame on this as far as getting it done? Because it does, I understand from Mark that the Commonwealth is not requiring their own agreement. However, there is a permit out there that's issued to somebody that I think we need to know as residents and board and staff who that road permit is through, because Glen Hopacre cut through the road for the developer, and even though it doesn't go into a Commonwealth stormwater system, it does go into the floodplain, which Mr. Hemister has always protected. And so we need to know that the township, especially the board, is protected and the residents are protected, that if there's a problem with this in the future, somebody's going to not only bird dog it, but maintain it and pay for it. Because right now it sits under a housing homeowners association, which, as I've seen in other townships, what happens is everybody forgets about these. And then they get costly and they need maintained, especially like mowing, like you just change your ordinance. And nobody wants to do it anymore because everybody who was the original homeowners aren't there, the developer's gone, and it just gets pushed aside and nobody takes care of it and nobody pays for it. So as a almost 50-year resident of Sheriff's Township, I'm asking, where does the buck stop?
Yeah, I can explain a little bit about what happened back last September. Our township engineer made a comment that this agreement was required, as it would be required by PennDOT for the highway occupancy permit for the road cut for this culvert pipe. That was something that he had based on previous experience with PennDOT with other projects elsewhere in the region. In this particular circumstance, though, this type of an agreement was not required by PennDOT because the pipe is not tying into a PennDOT stormwater system. So all the township required agreements that were required as part of the development phase 1, where all the stormwater was initially built, were done back in 2022. However, our engineer does still feel that it'd be beneficial to have this extra agreement. It's not absolutely necessary, but nonetheless, it provides clarity to the HOA on their responsibilities. Under our current agreement that we already had recorded, we have the ability to enforce the notes on the plan, which is if anything happens with that culvert pipe, they have to take care of it. It's their responsibility. This additional agreement will just go a little further in clarifying what those responsibilities are, and that's something that we're waiting on a copy of from the developer's solicitor. So they are currently working on drafting that. We're waiting to get a copy of it for us to have it reviewed, but until we get that, we can't move forward with having our solicitor review it. I'll also note that the permit that Ms. Headley referred to is between the developer and PennDOT. So the township doesn't have any role in that permit. PennDOT's the ones who will ultimately come out and verify whether or not the curve or the cut in the road has been restored to their satisfaction. They haven't done that yet. They told me when I spoke to them a couple weeks ago, the permit is still active. So at some point that'll be taken care of, but that's on the PennDOT side of things. We have no influence over their timing and when they might come out and take a look at it to make sure everything's up to their standards. So hopefully that gives you enough of a background of where we're at with the agreement and who's responsible for the culvert pipe in the long run. It is the HOA, and I understand your comments about how HOAs may not always pay attention to these things, but ultimately the property owners of the development are responsible for maintaining the stormwater. And, ultimately the township would be able to go to those property owners and require them to fix anything that needs fixed.
So the township is the watchdog.
Well, we would have inspections of that stormwater over time, but if there's a problem, we'd be the ones that would go back and say, this is part of your development, you have to fix it.
As we do with all stormwater,
Correct.
all basins.
Right.
That's a basin-wide issue.
Yeah, yes. I think she had a, I don't know.
Just on the same basis, is there an agency out there?
Could you
You
stand
speak
up
at
to
the
microphone?
microphone and identify yourself
Introduce
as well.
yourself, kind sir.
Fred Daly from 570 South Academy Street. I was thinking there's an agency out there because I'm in the lawn care business and we run into these problems with stormwater basins and stuff. Like she said, residents, homeowners association, let them grow up with trees, the grass overgrown, 5, 6, 7 years, then an agency comes in and sees us as an inspector and makes them clean that all up. So that's what I was just asking, if there was someone out there that polices it other than the township's responsibility.
I'm not certain the conservation district might also go out and look on occasion as well. So they might be the ones identifying some of these issues in longer, older basins.
One more comment, actually two probably. This has been open since September 11th, 2023. I shouldn't have to be the one bird dogging this. Staff changed. I understand how busy we all are, but I'm tired, and I'm too tired to have to monitor what needs to be done. And this should have been done. This is a huge development. This is a huge stormwater system. And it just got kicked the can, just like I said at the last meeting when I talked. Just like North Atherton Street, just like South Atherton Street. I used to work at the borough. Y'all don't talk to each other. And then it costs us, as a township, as taxpayers. We got to do a better job here. This is too long. We're talking June from September 11th, and it's still not done. And guess what? That lot 1RRR, I think I got 3, it's for sale by the developer. Yeah, it's on the plan. You ever look at that plan? That plan's like 25 pages long. The print's so small that I have to get a magnifying glass. I think there's about 32 notes on every page. If you're not familiar with those plans, you don't catch everything. So God help the homeowner that decides they want to build on that lot up there. It has 3 buildable areas. It's got a public water line across it, which is now deemed private because Harris Township lost the agreement with State Colorado Water Authority years ago, way before any of you, probably some of you were born. And we just got to do better. It's too exhausting. So I would like a time frame. The attorney for the developer can wait as long as they want. They can wait till there's a pending agreement on this land. That's not acceptable. This should have been done. This should have been done before the end of 2023. They got their approvals. They got everything in. It needs to be handled. So what's the time frame on this, and who's going to go out to the attorney for the developer and ask them again what the time frame is?
I'm sure the time frame for exactly what are you hoping for?
The agreement that he says is still out there that needs to be done.
Well, it's an agreement, and it will be done within a reasonable time, I'm sure.
But since September of 23.
When the board acted in September, you gave conditional approval on a plan, which means that it wasn't approved. They had time to meet conditions of that plan. So that was not something that they would necessarily get done the next week anyhow. The developer's attorney, through their consultant, They said they're working on it. Just today, I got an update saying that they should have it soon, so I would imagine it will be before the township soon. Again, this is an agreement that we requested of them. We don't have anything in our ordinance requiring of this of them. This was something that was requested of them. So they're working with us on that.
Yeah. Yeah, Frank.
I just want to clarify that. We have all the agreements that were in our ordinances and everything.
Correct.
This is something that the engineer, our township engineer has requested or recommended to us. And we are looking into getting it done, and we have requested of the developer. Okay, so as far as that goes, I'm comfortable with where that's at. As far as time frame, I don't know. How do you push a lawyer? You know, I mean, we'll keep on it, but I can't guarantee that it's gonna be next week or next month or 6 months until they get it done. And then we'll have our attorney look at it, so it's gonna have some attorney time. And how long that is, I can't sit here today and tell you.
I think the situation is the land's for sale,
Well,
so.
even if the land's sold, it's still gonna be required of whatever comes out of this. It's not gonna be grandfathered. I mean, it still will have, whatever that comes out of this agreement, it'll still be under that guise, and it'll happen.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr.
I
Harder.
mean, that's
That's
what's
good.
gonna happen.
I appreciate that. Thank you for putting that into words for the board and for the township. Thank you. That makes me feel better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others? We got
Other
one more.
public comment?
Fred Daly again from 570 South Academy Street. Good evening to all of you. And to congratulate Mark on his new position as township manager. It's the first I got to meet him tonight. I would like to bring something up tonight to your attention that I'm not sure if you guys know about or not. I think we are starting to have a serious problem with people walking on the streets in Boalsburg. I've lived here for quite a while, and it just has not been as bad as it has been lately. Mostly in the village. And the township, as far as I know, has put quite a bit of money into improving our sidewalks. I think the residents or non-residents need to start using our sidewalks. I go downtown State College, I go to Ferguson Township, people are not walking on the streets. And my biggest fear is, sure, I would hate for somebody to get hit by a car, but I really feel bad for the person that's driving the car and belongs on the street. I've had a close call within the last month of somebody walking on Main Street. You know, I got uppity, I yelled at them out the window, get on the sidewalk. They looked at me like, seriously? You know, and I get it. It's been commented before from you guys. We're a village. We're not a borough. We're not a township. We're not a city. But you got to remember, there's people that come to visit our village that aren't normally here, that don't realize those people. I'm talking about people, and these are friends of mine that are doing this. And I've talked to them about it, but you know, they shrug their shoulders. And they're walking 2 and 3, as many as 4, side by side down Main Street at 8 o'clock in the morning. I get it. You can't walk 4 together on the sidewalk, but that's not what it's about. I mean, and the streets that don't have sidewalks, I understand. You guys have addressed it in the past. Financially, it's almost impossible. Maybe there are a few places where we could get a sidewalk to get somebody where they need to, but when you are walking on the sidewalk, I don't think or off the sidewalk, on the street, where there's no sidewalks, I don't think people realize what the rule is. I don't know if it's a law, but it's a rule. You're supposed to walk towards traffic. So I'm going down Main Street and there's 2 or 3 people ahead of me, headphones, everything. Finally they turn around, they don't move. I go around them, they look at me like I'm the wrong person. And that's not just happening to me. There's other people. So I'm recommending that at least, if we don't have an ordinance or anything, that maybe something in the newsletter is recommended that pedestrians use our sidewalk, walk against traffic where there are no sidewalks. At night, wear some reflective clothing, and I have seen that in the past in the newsletter. You know, I don't know what it is. Why you need to wear a black jacket, a blue jacket. You know, if you're going to be a walker, I feel it's your responsibility to let people that are paying to be on that road to know you're there. And sure, there's lots of them. I go up Academy Street several times a day. And for the most part, they walk towards traffic and they even step off the road, just, you know, to be considerate and stuff. But that's not happening by enough of the people in this village or in the town. So that's what I had to say, just, you know, to your knowing of what's going on. I know all of you don't live in the township. I know all of you don't travel through the township maybe as much as some of us do. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. And then the last thing, kind of in the same thing, is I just realized within the last week that, I don't know how it got there, but there's a speed monitor thing on Academy Street. Do you guys approve that, or how's that get put there? Do you know it's there?
I had spoken with the police about putting one out at some point. I don't know, they didn't tell me they deployed
So
one
the
yet.
police do it? Okay.
Yes. Normally,
Well,
yes.
it's approximately, it's on the street, a sign right at the alley.
Okay.
By then, you better be slowing down because there's a stop sign coming up. My recommendation is that should be way up the street where the problem is. You know, you get what I'm saying? By the time you get down here to this alley, you're down to the 25 miles an hour. So, but, you know, we live on Academy Street, we live on the private part, so we have our own problems up there. But even on this paved part, and I know this isn't the only street, but so if you could make a recommendation that they move that up a little. And I noticed, I think the reason why is, I don't think there's any other posts.
They mentioned that might be difficult for them to put up because of that. I didn't know they had put one out already.
Oh my
so
gosh,
I
if
can
they
talk
want me to
them
put a
about it.
post in for them, I will. I mean, so we're gonna put it somewhere where it really doesn't affect or make any difference at all just because there's not a post. But anyway, that's what I had to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Fred. Good points.
Is that sign monitoring accumulative vehicles use? What's the
It would
measurement?
be speed. It would just be monitoring the speed.
Speed over time, speed over something?
Just individual speeds of vehicles driving down the roadway. It's radar,
Yeah, okay.
basically.
But does it record it?
It does, oh yeah, it records, it allows us to download that. I had asked the police to put those out there after we had comments about speed humps from residents here recently. Police have a limited number of those that they can use, so I was under the impression it might be months till they put them out, so if they already did. Okay, well, I'll talk to them and make sure it was them and not someone else. But
You didn't put it up, did you, Fred?
No, I wouldn't have put it there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on what Fred said there. You know, at the last meeting, about a couple weeks ago, we had a safety committee on the MPO. We have a safety committee meeting. And we had some discussion on this. You know, walking close to a road surface or a highway with headphones on, you know, not paying attention. And I brought up to PennDOT that, hey, you guys need to talk to the legislatures. Somebody's got to have to put something out. And I don't know if we can put an ordinance out to that, but as a minimum, I know we're going to have a hard time keeping people off the street. It's just, they do. And I agree with Fred. I see it all the time. We become a walking community. People walk wherever they think they can walk. So I don't know how we enforce that without having the police up and down the streets. I don't think anybody wants that. But I do think we need to look into the thing. Can we, as a township, put an ordinance out about headphones or what if you're walking along the street or a highway? I don't know if we can or not, but you know, sooner or later, somebody's got to start that ball rolling. And right now, they're passing, they just signed that you can't text in your car.
Yeah.
So you know, why can't we look at that? So I don't know if that's something we can send to, who we send it to. Do we send it to planning, or, I don't know. I don't even know if we can do it, but.
we can always look into it as staff. I will say that the other issues that Mr. Daly raised are already covered under state law, where if there's a sidewalk present, you are supposed to walk on it if practicable, and you're also supposed to walk on the left side of the road if it's a two-way street.
Well, maybe we just call Chief Gardner and have his guys give out some warnings, you know.
Certainly can put it in the e-update as
Yeah,
well,
put it on
to
the
get-
e-newsletter.
make folks aware.
I think that people should be aware. I mean, I get, personally, I get annoyed when there's a car behind me and it's an electric car. I can't hear it, even with nothing. And I do get annoyed because as far as I'm concerned, if I'm even walking on the street, I'm walking the right way or whatever I'm doing, or somebody's behind me for some reason. And I think it's their responsibility if I can't hear it.
traffic, you'll see the electric
No, but
car.
you know what I'm saying, there's sometimes like you're,
know, I'm just saying. you
I
should
walk
towards-
across the street, or I don't see, or
that's a
this or that, or
crosswalk.
somebody,
That's a crosswalk.
you know, there's always an opportunity, and I can't hear it. So it's not just, it's everything, and I think it's very, and if you can't hear it, if the car is behind you, you can't hear it, and you've got your ears on, what's gonna happen when you put stuff in your ears? And I agree with that, and that is something that's happening today more and more, that has to be addressed. And I also think it's a safety issue for females to be out there walking around and not being able to hear what's going on around them, so,
But Ken, finishing up,
you gotta be kidding, right?
can that be something that is put in the newsletter that you're recommending, that it is a law, that if a sidewalk's available, you should use it?
Well, we
I don't
can,
think people realize that.
we can certainly write something up to remind folks that that is what's in state law, that if there's a sidewalk available, that you should use it unless it's not practicable, which I know at times we have spots here in the township where there's a sidewalk and then there's not a sidewalk and there's a sidewalk again. So, you know, certainly there's gonna be times where folks will have to get on the street, but we can put that in the e-update as well as some reminders of wearing reflective clothing and,
It's for their safety.
right, yeah, more than happy to do that.
And maybe listen more,
Have your earbuds.
Yeah, I think,
take your earbuds out.
I'd like to add one thing. I agree with Mr. Daly, and I thank you, Tracy, for your comments and for receiving these, because I think it is critical. And the other thing that perhaps could go in it is about big dogs, that they need to be leashed and that they need to stay on their own property. Because we have Rottweilers that are pretty big, that people can't even hardly handle on the leash. And that there needs to be some respect, that even though I'm a big dog person, I love dogs, all dogs, and I especially love big dogs. But that is something with the weather improving, and I will speak to it out in the country. They're all over my property, even with no trespassing signs. So I appreciate this very much that he brought this up, and I agree that it is something we probably do need to address, because it is rural, but it's still unsafe for the driver especially, because that's the person who's going to be held accountable. So thank you for receiving those comments tonight.
indeed. You know, of course, anytime it seems reasonable, we'll put it in the, on our e-news, Township e-news. And I do appreciate the fact that, there's more people out on the streets that don't seem to know that they're supposed to be going against traffic, running, jogging with headphones on down the middle of the lane and expecting people to see you. And yeah, I get it.
One thing they have to realize too, our township's getting bigger. It's not the old village. Springfield Commons, Hawk Ridge, new homes up on Church Street. So there's a lot more people that are using the street that should be using the sidewalk. So, we're getting bigger. We're not that little old village anymore.
For sure. Okay. Anybody else have any public comment
We have,
on the agenda?
Hi, I'm Sue Trainer. I live at 1312 Andover Drive, and I'm your representative to SCLO Library, so for the township. So I just have a brief, first an announcement that the summer reading program is up and running. It's just got up and running. Don't have all the numbers yet, but the total enrolled right now is 1,832 people. That's adults and children, so it's fairly significant. And the website allows anybody to enroll very easily, and it's sort of a fun thing for people to do. So that's up and running. And the other thing I wanted to tack on to it is that I think it's important that you understand that the library staff themselves are always actively looking for alternative sources of funding. And so with that in mind, I wanted to let you know, if you haven't read about it or heard about it, the library has received 3 grants. They initiated a grant, SCLO initiated a grant to Hamer Foundation in support of 4 counties. It would include Center, Clearfield, Mifflin, and Juniata, to get additional materials, books, e-books, things of that nature. The focus of the grant, and it will support the summer reading program somewhat, so that's why I figured I could bring it right in here. The initiative was initially put out there in recognition that through the pandemic, particularly students lost some reading capabilities, they lost some sort of reading momentum. And so that award of $38,000 is to more or less be supplemental, and it conveniently comes in and supports the summer reading program in 4 counties. But also they wrote a grant and were approved for it for $325,000, which is fairly significant, for the HVAC system. So the HVAC system at the library will be covered by a foundation grant. So there'll be 2 brand new rooftop units, and I noticed when I was in there the other day, I noticed a lot of cranes and other vehicles around the parking lot, so they must be up there now. And lastly, the 3rd grant that they wrote, and this is Hamer as well, is to refurbish the 2 elevators, and they were awarded that to the tune of $65,530. So that work is being done or will be done, and it's addressing various problems, kind of updates and refurbing those elevators. So that's all I had, but I just wanted to let you know, okay?
What was the total that the library received on the center gives program? 84,000?
I don't know what the, I could look it up, but I don't know what their center gives total
They
was.
came in number 3
Yeah,
on
yeah,
all the gifts.
yeah.
I think it was 84 to
Yeah.
85,000.
And they came in number 1 on number of unique donors.
Yeah, individual
So,
donors.
Yeah, so.
Pretty dramatic.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, you're trying to find money in as many places as you can, so,
The second highest was paws.
yeah,
We like our animals.
that's right, whether they're in the street or not. There you go. I'm one of those people, this isn't a side note, I'm one of those walker people, but I don't walk against traffic, and I live in a place with no sidewalks, so.
Well, thank you for the report. Thank you for serving as our representative. Okay. Anybody else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. New agenda items. Anybody on the board want to introduce anything? I won't go into the entire nomenclature regarding this. Okay. So we'll get on to township business. The first item is an introduction of CRPA local planning staff. Mark?
So the Center Regional Planning Agency recently hired 2 planners that will be assisting the township with local planning needs. Ms. Jenna Wargo and Ms. Summer Brown are here this evening. Just wanted to give them a quick opportunity to give an introduction about themselves. They will be starting out with helping out with the agricultural security area update, as well as some other items on the 2024 Planning Commission work plan. So, Jenna, or whichever one of you wants to go first.
We're doing a fun fact too?
If you'd like.
We'll go through it again. All right, I'm Jenna Wargo. I used to be the planning director at Ferguson Township, and now I am your local planner here for CRPA. And my fun fact is I was a collegiate javelin thrower in college. So
Somehow we knew that.
Jenna's javelin.
Thank you, Dick.
I feel like everyone knows Jenna and I'm the newbie, but I'm Summer Brown, and I was the planning and zoning admin assistant and the public works admin assistant at Ferguson, and I've been at CRPA for 3 weeks now. So I'm learning as I'm going, but it's all very interesting and I'm having a great time. And my fun fact is I live on a beef farm in Bellefonte. Most people don't expect that from me, so yeah.
You said 35 head on
Yes,
the farm?
35.
Good.
You remember that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, emergency management presentation. Jonathan Riceley, Center County COG Emergency Management Coordinator.
All right, that's me. They don't want to hear my fun fact. I'm kind of offended. Just kidding. My name's Jonathan Risley. I am the newly appointed emergency manager. Just started January of this year. Been getting out to some of the municipalities, giving the same overview for everyone on what your responsibilities are as elected officials. I'm sorry you do have some, but I'm here to help you out with as much of that as I can, and I'll go through some things here. Feel free to ask questions. So when I designed this, I tried to make it accessible for everyone. So knowing that I don't want to spend 3 hours diving into the books and some of those details, if you have questions, I'm more than willing to answer those after that, or some of the longer ones. But everything's available on that QR code. Will get you to some of the manuals and things that I have in here. So if you want to review it later, Mark also has a copy of all this, as well as the slides themselves too. So this is what we're going to go over. What's emergency management? Military's taught me. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you about. Then I'm going to tell you about it. And then I'm going to tell you what I told you about. So that's what we're going to go over through here. Talk about the codes and the laws and the why. We're going to talk about the relationship that the Center Region Council of Governments has with Penn State University, because we do partner on a lot of things together. We're going to talk about the services that my office provides. Talk about the requirements that I need from the elected officials sitting at the table there. And then we're going to wrap it up with just the summary of everything. So what is emergency management? I'm not going to read the slide to you. Sometimes I'm the weather guy. I was really worried about, during Memorial Day, what's this going to look like? And, I got to be checking and talking with Weather Service quite a bit, but we're there to respond to the bad things. We're also planning for the known events. Memorial Day is one of those events. The big football sports thing up the hill here, that impacts all of us in the center region. So we're planning for those bad things, or we're planning for those things, and hopefully there are no bad things. But if bad things happen, we can respond to them appropriately. Title 35, we'll get into that here a little later. So next slide. Rules and laws. Title 35, that governs emergency management here in Pennsylvania. There's a specific section in there. I pulled it out and thrown it on the slide here. In the slideshow, if you click this picture here, the website, it'll actually take you right to that website, so you can start reading Title 35. If anyone's having trouble sleeping at night, it's code, so it's going to be not the most user-friendly thing to read. The good news is, on the next slide, I believe, they have much better versions of what does this mean for you. So I threw everything up here. I know this first one with the borough won't apply to you, but I threw it up here so you can actually see. But if you were to go and pull those both up, the emergency management section, the fire section, the EMS section, it's going to mirror itself, because those requirements are the same, across the borough, the municipality, the city, and that. So what does that mean? You have to provide services. You have to have these things in place. That's why I'm the emergency manager for all of them, because of the COG and that agreement that each municipality has with the center region. So you could have your own, or you can have me. Go back one there real quick. No worry. The last book there would be my left. That's a little bit more in depth on emergency management and the policies and some things to think about, and some of the requirements we have for the state. So one of the things, and I'll get into this a little bit later, we'll talk about is, that individual. Go ahead. We'll capture that a little later here. Getting ahead of myself. So if you click on some of these links here, it'll pull up the documents. We do have an emergency management plan. I'm working on updating that here, because it's been a bit since we've updated that, and we had that big life-changing event here a couple years ago that changed everything, and no one really would have thought that COVID would have been a thing. But now that's changed a lot of how we as a society respond to things. So we are now more critical of hospital capacities and PPE and things of that nature. So we're going to update that plan accordingly to get some of that material in there. Like I said, we worked with the university on a lot of stuff. What does that mean? The university brings, one of the biggest things is resources. So with the COG, we have a lot of resources amongst the different municipalities, but they're on what I like to refer to the other side of College Avenue. And I say that having worked there at one point, is there's a lot of things there we can use. So one of the things that we will be using is the emergency operations center we have there. What does that mean? Power, heat, IT support. So if we do have some long drawn out event, we can actually start using that, setting that up and filling that as our own EOC to handle whatever emergency we have in the area here. And I'm going to try and work on tours for anyone that would like to, get a tour of what that center looks like at USB 1. The stadium, there's one at the stadium too that might not be able to happen just based on construction activities going on there, but there is an alternate location at the stadium as well. And then if I can work it in, a 911 tour as well. So you see what it looks like on behind the curtain, if you want to call it that, one, the day-to-day operations of fire, police, EMS, and then ultimately when an emergency happens, what some of that response could look like. We do have a joint plan between us and the Center Region and the university. Again, that spells out responsibilities that we both have. We can help the university can help us. The university can't go directly to the county because they're not a government entity. Myself as the municipal EM, I can go to the Center County and say, hey, our resources are exceeded our level, we need help. And the county will then start getting us that. So what's a good PowerPoint presentation without a flow chart? But we're over here in the orange, as far as emergency management, and I'm sure all of you have seen this before. I know when I was looking around here, it's out there, but I report, work with the Emergency Management Council on day-to-day, and I also work administratively with Director Kaufman in the fire program. So what do we bring? There's myself as one full-time employee. I do have another part-time employee. His name's Derek Hoover. The 6 municipalities in the Center Region, between the two of us, we are the emergency managers for all 6 of them. We work a lot on special events planning because that's that planning for the big things. I'm happy to say I attended my first Memorial Day. It was awesome. I was super happy to got to see a gentleman from World War II speak at the Military Museum. It was quite awesome, hearing his story from World War II. I'm planning on coming back to more of that. Situational awareness. So what's this? This is that weather update. This is, working with law enforcement on some of those things that are coming in and around. We've got Iron Man coming up here. While it's not specifically, a huge impact for this area and this municipality here, what other things are coming about? Could there be a target of, some political activity one way or another? So we're looking and trying to prepare people for that. Again, we talked about weather, which gets into a lot of that. We do maintain a list of shelter locations in different municipalities. What does that bring? Power, heat, some sanitary facilities as well. The IMT ICS, that's an incident management team and incident command system. So if we had something here and you needed additional support because it's going to be more than just a water main break for a couple hours, and hey, what's this look like? How can you need somebody to make phone calls, start writing things down. Documentation's a big thing that we get into. It's on another slide here. So if we did have a disaster, how do we get reimbursement? It's not documented, it didn't happen, so we can't get the reimbursement. So our office can help with that to, try and get some of that additional funding from the state and feds in the event we actually have a declared emergency. And that's that public and individual assistance support with trying to reach out to that. I also do have a pool of money that available to me that if we do have an emergency that I can actually tap into and start, ordering things and resources to, try and handle that situation as soon as possible versus, trying to wait and run it through a meeting. I do have money accessible to me that I can use in the event we have a declared disaster. So, next slide. Requirements. So, the good news is I have all of this. I can help you get through it. So, as elected officials in some of those documents I referenced earlier, I need you to take this online training here. And I'm going to send out an email here after this meeting here, so it's a little bit easier for you to get to, so you don't have to write down where to go, but I'll send out instructions. The good news is these are online. These next 2 here are online. The 2 at the Star are in person. They're a couple-day courses. You don't need those, but these look at the larger, broader scale incidents compared to this talks about incident command, a safety officer, does that hierarchy like in that ICS structure, the incident command structure, and how that works on the federal and state levels, because that's what everyone's using when they respond to Katrina type events. It's just at a much larger scale. So I'll send out the information for that. If you have questions or can't get into it, please let me know. I'll help you get through it the best I can. I'm even willing to come down and sit down with you to walk you through that if anyone's having difficulty with that. It'll give you a better understanding of how, again, FEMA and the state even responds to large-scale incidents. Why this is important in the event we actually have something happen and they go and audit training records and we don't have this, we may not receive reimbursement. So that's why that's really important. There's additional training out there. Just finished my last in-service training with PEMA. I'm waiting to get the certificate, then I can send away with that. And I'm happy to say I finished my municipal associate certification with PEMA once PEMA actually processes the paperwork. So hopefully should have that here in the next few months once I get that last certificate and I can send in the packet and I can start working on the professional. That's additional courses out there. And I can share with you what that curriculum looks like, but we're training to make sure that, we can respond to everything you need for emergency management goes. The last one there is National Emergency Management Academy. That's in Emmitsburg, Maryland at the National Fire Academy. There's additional training there as well you can go to, which is typically free. So again, the QR code there, the slides are there, all the links for the documents are on there as well. And once I get out of here, I'll send an email to you so you have that information on how to take that training. If you might have already taken it before, there's a way you can actually go log in, check your transcript. If you don't remember your student ID number, there's a way to get that too, and I can help you through all that, and I'm more than happy to do so. And then once I get through all the municipalities, I'll be collecting those records and just making sure we all have it. That way in the event we do have something, I know we're good to go as far as reimbursement. We don't have to worry about playing the catch-up game later. So any questions for me?
I took 100, 700 about the time Sean started,
Okay.
I don't know how many years ago that was, but we've done all that, so.
And it wasn't that bad, was it?
No comment.
So I've been through some weird trainings, and I can tell you right now that's one that's not that bad actually. There's others that's been a little bit worse. So
More time consuming than that.
that and a little dry too. So
It's like a safe certification.
Is there a quiz? Is there a quiz on it?
there could be, but there's
I
not.
don't do that. No quiz.
There is a test at the end of those courses,
Oh, I don't
but
want that.
but it's actually not that bad. So it is.
I think the main question on the test was, do you know the name of the local emergency management coordinator?
That's not one of them, but if I was making the test, I'd put that on there. So
I answered yes.
All right. Any questions for Jonathan?
thank you.
Great, thanks for the presentation. All right, let's see where we are on that. Yep. So next on the agenda. Next on the agenda, proposed ordinance 365, amending Chapter 12, Article 14, entitled Signs.
Yeah, public hearing was held on this matter at the beginning of the meeting. The agenda language is identical to what I read for the public hearing, so I won't bore you by reading it again. I know we have at least one question on this ordinance, so before we get to that, I'll read the recommendation that's in the agenda, which is to move to adopt ordinance number 365, an amendment of Chapter 12, Article 14 of the Harris Township Code of Ordinances.
I make that motion. I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion.
You had a question, you said?
No.
I have questions.
Somebody said they had a question earlier.
Stop it. I have one question, and, because I read the whole thing. The sign area, the signs permitted and prohibited in all zoning districts. Number 12. The personal message signs that may promote political candidates, causes, yard sales, garage sales, etc. when placed on private property. No more than 3 signs, yada, 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 yada. And then it says, such signs are intended for personal messages and may not contain any commercial advertisement. My question is, what are we going to do about, and I didn't read, maybe I missed it in here, but I read through it twice. What are we going to do about contractors working on properties? That is an advertisement, as far as I understand.
Right. I think we have 2 issues with contractor signs. One is they like to place them within the right of way, which means they won't be allowed to do that. So they'll either have to place them on the private property or not place them at all. If they're going to place a sign on the property that does bear commercial advertisement, they would have to get a license to do that. If it's in a zoning district, such as a residential zoning district, where such signs are not allowed, then they won't be allowed to do it. Now, I'd have to look at the regulations to see if signs under a certain size are permitted in any zoning district that would
Right.
accommodate that.
My question then is this. Who's enforcing this ordinance? And you are planning on driving around the neighborhoods because you know where people are working, right?
For the most part.
And you're planning on going around and enforcing these ordinances.
For the most part, historically, Harris Township has done ordinance enforcement on a complaint basis. But yes, at parts of every week, I am out doing things, and I do come across ordinance violations, and at that point, I will follow up on them.
Okay, and especially with this particular one, since it's really not, I would have had no idea, of course. So do we issue warnings in reference to this, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I think it's a situation where it's in the zoning ordinance, so we have to provide an enforcement letter prior to any kind of proceeding before the district justice. Give the people a period of time to become in compliance. If it's a situation where a certain contractor does it repeatedly for every job they do in the township, I don't know that we would have to provide a notice every single time. If they're a repeat offender, and we just talked to the district justice about this last week or the week before, we may be able to just cite the contractor if he just ignores our warnings.
And I did not see, and I don't know what the application for a temporary sign looks like. Is it an easy application?
Yeah, the temporary sign license application and the permanent sign license application are the same. They're pretty easy. You provide, the property information, the contractor information, the sign information itself, height, the length, width, provide a drawing, hand-drawn sign, where the sign or signs are going to be on the property. That's pretty much it.
And the cost of a temporary sign?
I believe it's $15, so that's good for, I think, 6 months currently.
I thought it was 90 days according to
Maybe
this.
it is 90 days, yeah.
90 days.
Yeah.
So, okay, and also in addition to that, how are we going to enforce, signs that pop up for garage sales and weekends when people are having garage sales and that show up on Saturdays or whatever day that garage sales are happening?
That will be something I'll have to coordinate with the township manager, because if it becomes a situation where people are becoming accustomed to knowing when we aren't in the office and when we're not going to be driving around, perhaps schedules can be changed or overtime can be paid to make some trips on weekends to stop those types of
I mean,
things.
I'm personally, I wish that we could remain more of a colloquial township, but I understand the problem.
Right.
But if we're gonna have a problem, then we have to make sure, I think we have to make sure there's also an understanding about, how do we get the word out to everybody? Like, how do we let them know that we can't do this, or how do we let them know and I think that's another problem altogether.
I think the
Emails are fine,
e-update
but-
is
yeah,
going to
but
be.
Not everybody gets that e-update.
No, not everybody does. We can also put it on our website, and about the time someone gets a letter letting them know of a violation of an ordinance, word tends to spread, and they share it with their friends. And certainly, people watch these meetings, and they can call the township or email the township anytime they want to get information. I think it's important to point out that this isn't something that we necessarily want to do. This is
No, I
something,
agree.
according to the Supreme Court, that we pretty much have to do.
No, I agree, but that's why I said I wish we could be more
Right.
colloquial. But unfortunately, I mean, that's why I asked. Because if we're gonna have this ordinance, I want to know how we plan on enforcing it. Because I'm not gonna vote for an ordinance that we're not going to enforce.
We are going to enforce it consistently.
There you go.
I mean, I'm not happy about it. I'm really not happy about it. But if we're gonna have an ordinance, I insist that we enforce
I
it.
think the one thing, this ordinance is gonna get a test this fall.
Sure.
This is a political year, and it's a big political year. You're gonna start seeing political signs, and that 3 per property is gonna get tested real quick. So that's something that we might wanna put out when we put it in the e-newsletter and stuff.
Yeah, and we've spoken to our solicitor about this,
I
and
know.
he feels comfortable defending the ordinance. If it turns out that, somebody does take us to court over it and we lose, we'll amend the ordinance to be in compliance with whatever the local court said.
Is it possible to get, especially with the political candidates, when you have to go, I mean, I think I had to go to the courthouse at one point, and I have to do something and sign up and everything, get the information, all that stuff. Is it possible to get that information, especially now that this is going through pretty much, statewide, nationwide, or whatever, with these signs, is it possible to get that information out to candidates prior to the election period?
It is not unusual for me to get a phone call or a visit or an email from the chairman of the local party group asking what the campaign sign regulations are prior to a primary or prior to a general election. And I always share that information. Obviously, this year I'm going to have some new information to share, and I don't imagine it will probably be received too well. In the past, it's been my experience that local candidates, more than state or federal candidates, pay attention to the regulations. The state and the federal signs go up everywhere, as you know from driving around the township. So it will be an interesting, probably 2 or 3 years until everybody gets the word. Yeah.
And the state and federal ones are often the ones that are removed last.
They're usually removed by me. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the candidate or the committee doesn't take them down if you lose.
Right. Even if they win.
Well,
And the local candidates also pay for their signs, and if they're gonna run again, they collect them so they can use them again.
oh, yeah. I got mine.
I still have one at Denny's as well, a few of mine.
Wondered where that went, didn't you?
No comment.
We'll just put them all on Bud's property.
I was reading through the document. Who's gonna tell Bud about this? I think it's interesting. Interesting that a sign panel at the side of a building is considered a sign.
Mhm. Yeah.
In larger cities, they aren't.
Well, if you look at the sign area definition,
Yeah.
that pretty well defines it. If it's a mural, or if it's something that doesn't bear any commercial advertising, it's not a sign.
We don't have a lot of walls around here that can be painted.
We have a lot of walls that can be painted, but probably none with decorative murals, yeah.
So that was my only question, and that's it. I'm done. You happy?
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Concerns? Okay. Did we have a motion and a second for that yet? I don't believe so.
Yeah, it was Frank and Denny.
Oh, okay, good. All right, more discussion? All in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. On to proposed ordinance number 366, amending Chapter 5, Article 1, entitled Weed Removal.
Likewise, we held a public hearing at the beginning of this meeting, and likewise, the agenda language is identical to that I read for the public hearing, so I won't repeat it. Staff's recommendation is move to adopt ordinance number 366, an amendment to Chapter 5-1 of the Harris Township Code of Ordinances.
I'll make that.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Discussion on this one?
How often is that brought to your attention? Not particularly by you observing it, but by the neighbors objecting to it?
I think it's about 50-50. I think probably, 5, 6, 7 times a year,
Yeah.
someone will call me. As we discussed before, usually most of those are the same people every year. When I'm out doing inspections or looking at something, I'll notice a yard that the grass hasn't been mowed in a while, and I'll follow up on it. But yeah, we probably have a dozen or so, 15 a year typically, and probably about half of those are people that call in to complain.
Neighborhood grudge kind of issue almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I do have a question now. How does it necessarily work? So a property owner gets a warning and then receives a fine, or a property owner?
The property owner, what happens is if someone reports a potential violation or I witness one, I will measure it. In the vehicle, I have a fold-up ruler that I can sit on the ground, goes 12 inches this direction. I have a camera. If the grass is more than now 8 inches, if you adopt this ordinance, they will receive, Frank, a letter saying that either a violation was reported or noticed and it was verified, and they have 5 days, I think the ordinance says, to be in compliance. I'll check again at some point after that 5 days. I take into account the weather, I take into account, the weekends, things like that. So it's not always exactly 5 days depending on the weather and things. But after that period, if I check it and it's still not in compliance, I will drive down to the district justice office with a non-traffic citation and file it. Every day that the property remains in violation, I can file a new citation. We typically don't, but we can.
So, I guess what I'm asking is that, so do they get so they get a letter again as a repeat offender?
One of the things that our solicitor told us many years ago that we ran by the district justice this year is if it's a property where it is a known repeat offender, do we have to send a letter each time? And the district justice said, at least in his court, he doesn't know how it will be interpreted in upper courts, but at least in his court, if we know it's a repeat offender, a single letter at the beginning of the growing season when you notice the first potential violation, so long as that letter mentions that this will be their sole notification for the year, he's fine with that. He's okay with me citing on that.
So we will be sending a letter that says that this is your sole notification for the year?
Right.
Can
For
you,
repeat offenders.
can the offender reply to you and say, I'm moving along? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, that basically negates the issue.
Yeah, well, I'd still go out and check.
Yeah.
But we actually encourage people, particularly repeat offenders, in notifications we've sent to them, we've encouraged them to contact us. We can set up a meeting, we can go visit their property, they can come in and talk to us to find out what the problem might be, if there's something that we don't know about, if there are any extenuating circumstances that we can work with. We always make that offer, and people seldom take us up on it.
Nigel, I have one question that we can put this all to rest. How many sightings, how many times have you had to cite somebody because they didn't cut their grass after they were warned?
It has happened. It has.
I know it
much
happened
lately.
recently.
Yeah, recently. Well, there has been one this year so far. There are some now that are currently pretty close.
Okay. All right, but it's not something that happens every week.
No.
Okay, good.
Historically, I don't know if it's my charming personality or what, but historically, we very seldom have to actually issue a citation. In all seriousness, issue a citation because we're real good at working with people, and a lot of times people do have specific issues that are preventing them from being in compliance, and we recognize that. We try and accommodate them.
And this applies not only to R1 properties, it applies to ag also.
Well, it doesn't apply on ag properties where there's an active farming operation going on. It doesn't apply on forested land, and we added a definition of what a forested land is. So there are some exemptions.
But there are situations in an ag with a freestanding home that could very easily be in violation.
Well,
That's sort of an
if there's
iffy
no
kind of-
active,
yeah.
if there's no active ag, the complaint I've gotten a lot in the past was people that live in a subdivision beside a farm. They want me to have them cut the grass for 100 feet away from those people's backyards that have the houses in the subdivision because they don't like to see it. Understandable, certainly. But if it's an active agricultural operation, it could be that they're just letting that grow that year to replenish the soil or whatever they do, and they're gonna actually be tilling it the next year and farming it, so we can't really do anything about that.
Or they may bail it.
Sure.
so it becomes a commodity.
Right?
Call the question.
What?
Call the question.
Okay, very good. So, you have a motion and a second, so, all in favor of adopting, ordinance number 366, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. And Todd again, home-based business ordinance draft.
This is a little longer. I'm going to have to read this one. At a meeting earlier this year, the Board of Supervisors forwarded to the Planning Commission a project to create some regulations for low-impact, home-based businesses to be added to the proposal for a zoning ordinance amendment creating regulations for no-impact, home-based businesses. Several ideas were discussed, including allowing only an appointment-based model for those low-impact businesses that might have on-site interactions with their customers or clients, eliminating the inclusion of any specific uses or businesses to avoid a lengthy and nearly impossible exhaustive list of such businesses, limiting the floor area for low-impact businesses by both a percentage of the floor area of the dwelling and a maximum square footage, whichever is less, and establishing a minimum lot area upon which low-impact businesses can operate. Additionally, the PC discussed allowing in-home daycare services to be included with low-impact home-based businesses. Staff reviewed several local and non-local ordinances for examples and found that not every municipality in the Center region and elsewhere permits child care for non-resident children to take place in the home. Staff ordered this section of the draft to minimize adding regulations outside of those established by the Commonwealth, since the Commonwealth requirements appear to be very thorough. And if you remember in your discussions, you indicated that you wanted to see in-home daycares be included in the low-impact regulations. The Planning Commission discussed some minor changes to the draft, expressing general satisfaction with the proposed regulations as presented. They forwarded the draft to the Board of Supervisors for consideration at a future meeting, which is tonight. Staff has included a full version of the draft amendments, both no impact and low impact sections for discussion. Staff's recommendation is discussion item. If the board is satisfied with the draft or if minor amendments are desired, staff can incorporate any changes and schedule a review of the amendment by the Center Regional Planning Commission, followed by a public hearing at a future Board of Supervisors meeting.
I read my copy and have no comments on the Bruce feed, so.
If you remember, you reviewed the no impact extensively at a previous meeting, so that shouldn't be new to you. The low impact is the newer portion this month.
I read through it. I couldn't see anything there that I objected to. I think it's a good start or result from what we asked for. So I don't have a problem with moving forward with it. And you know, there's always going to be something where somebody's going to, after a while, thinks of something or something will come up. But other than that, I don't see a problem with it.
Maybe an issue of running this for a while and testing it
Yeah.
to see if we encounter a situation that has to be amended, but, you know, the way it stands now, it's a good start.
Well, I think the big one that it covers is that first one. Because we didn't have, you know, people working at home, you know, that home-based businesses, of whatever you want to call it. We had nothing on that, really. And I think that puts something out there that gives us a starting point.
I have a question. I don't quite know, where would you have the no impact versus the low impact? Like, where would that be in the township?
It could be anywhere in the township where you have a dwelling. The difference between no impact and low impact is that the no impact regulations, literally, you wouldn't be able to tell that there's a home-based business there if you didn't know. There wouldn't be any customers, there would be no deliveries specific to the business. It would just basically look like somebody's living there, which they would be, and they're also operating a business for profit as an accessory use on the property. Where the low impact is a little different is you might see a customer show up here or there. You might see an additional outside employee show up. There might be a few more cars, even though that the impact is going to be much lower than it could be. It could take place right next door to a no impact business, but because there is the additional aspect of customers and maybe an outside employee, you could see some additional activity there. Some deliveries also.
So are we choosing between the two then?
No, the
I don't
original
understand.
recommendation was, when you talked about this before with the no impact business, the MPC, the Municipalities Planning Code, was it 2001 or 2002? They had an amendment pretty much mandating the municipalities adopt the language for the no impact businesses. We didn't know about it until last year. So we worked through that and came up with the no impact regulations. When we presented that to you folks, we asked you if you also wanted a low impact, because the no impact would have eliminated some of the things that we allowed before as home occupations, as we called them. And you thought it was a good idea to include low impact also. So these aren't competing against one. You're not choosing one or the other. The township, the staff's proposal was to adopt this as it's written as an ordinance amendment completely. Delete the home occupation regulations and insert all of this in its stead.
I guess I have troubles, and I always have, because I grew up basically in a no impact area, period.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest problem with the low impact area is the on-site visits by customers, clients, or other patrons of a low impact home-based business shall be limited to an appointment-only basis. You can have one appointment after another appointment, after another appointment, after another, all day long. My problem is what is the impact to that neighborhood, first of all? What is the impact to those neighbors, first of all? And how do I feel about maybe being an at-home mom with 2-3 children of my own, with my neighbor bringing in extraneous people who I don't know, you know, and I think I really think it's a safety issue that needs to be considered in a low impact business, and where you can have a low impact business.
Yeah, and I think what we're attempting to do with this draft is, under the home occupations, we didn't have limits on the number of customers you could have at a time. It didn't have to be appointment based. You could taught something. You could have taught music, taught anything. You could have had 50 people come to somebody's house to learn how to play the flute if that's what you wanted to do, and there wouldn't have been anything the township could have done to prevent it. With this, we're presenting some limits on the impact that it can have on neighborhoods, which is why it's called a low impact, a set of regulations. We're still allowing a certain amount of impact to the neighborhood, but through the different regulations we have in there, we're limiting it to what we think is appropriate.
Yeah, I always look at the negative side. Yes, I have had music lessons and this and that in neighborhoods, and that's the positive side of it. But I am concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I have concerns.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's great to have music lessons and everything, but I have concerns.
yeah.
The no impact really has emerged in the last 5 years, when we've gotten into the electronic era. You could have 50 students taking music lessons at a low impact.
Sure.
They would be worldwide.
Yeah.
That's very common.
Yeah.
Bruce has his hand up online.
Oh, okay. Yes, Mr. Lord.
Yes, thank you. I have a little bit of a question about, well, I'm started just thinking about what kind of businesses might we be talking about. For example, if someone was a tax accountant, and so they were doing people's taxes, would that be a low-impact business?
It actually could be both.
Well, and I'll put out another one, a real estate agent, where a client would come in. And the reason I ask these two, and I think we can find more, is because if I'm a tax accountant, it seems to me that's a pretty low impact business. But if someone's filing a joint return, both partners need to show up to file the return, to sign the returns.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit bothered by that. And this, maybe ties into the parking thing. And perhaps if we allowed one vehicle rather than one person, we would provide an opportunity for a husband and wife to come in and sign tax returns.
Yeah, I think what we talked about at the Planning Commission was that the one client doesn't necessarily apply to a single person. If it's a couple, or if it's an attorney and somebody's going over a will or something like that, that is the client. It wouldn't necessarily mean one person.
So maybe we just could clean up the wording a little bit. And I also wonder, just tying into this, if we're only going to allow one client, why two parking places? Two additional parking places?
Yeah, I
I
think.
guess husbands could show up in different cars, and I'll talk against myself. Perhaps that extra parking place would be for that one employee that we allow. So these are just some questions that came up to me, and I'd like to see us clarify a little bit better than what we have here. I'm in general agreement with what we're trying to do.
Yeah, Bruce, the parking question came up. Initially, the draft had that you would have to follow whatever parking regulations in the zoning ordinance that applied to the, the category of use that you were doing as a low impact business. And we found that would end up being too cumbersome, and may lead to a situation where unintentionally maybe someone would have to actually pave parking in their backyard where we didn't really necessarily want that. So rather than trying to police things that are hard to police and maybe even impossible to police at times, we thought that since they're already required to have 2 parking spaces for the dwelling, to require an additional 2 for the low impact business would keep them under that 5 limit that required a paved parking lot, and that would be the easiest and most direct way to address the parking requirements for a low impact business.
Well, thank you. I would suggest that we maybe clarify the one customer thing, be a little bit clear that that this is not necessarily one individual.
Yeah, we can do that.
What exact section are you talking on, Bruce? Can you give me a number of where that,
Back page number 8.
Yes.
back
Yeah,
page?
Section 8.
Number what?
Section 8.
8.
8?
8.
Is it 18?
8.
8, oh, okay.
8.
Okay. Well, if you live on a street that has on-street parking, there's nothing that says you can't park in front of your neighbor's home.
No, my concern is rather that we're saying that when we say one customer, I want to make it clear that a husband and wife can come in to sign a tax return or work with an attorney on their will. And not that we only allow one individual, but we're talking about one, somehow just nuance it a little better so it's clear that it's not one individual, but rather it's, I mean, that's what staff's for. Work on the wording a little bit.
Yeah, Mark and I just had a short conversation, and we think we can probably add a definition of what a customer is and insert it in here, which will clarify it.
What if we just said one customer, client, or partner? Because you have partners, and you could have a business that has 2 partners.
Yeah, that wouldn't address like a father, son, or.
Well, partners, father, son, whatever it would be.
I think the idea of the definition might allow us to expand it enough just to make sure if you had like a reading of a will, you might have 3 or 4 people showing up in a car to go in and talk to someone about that reading of that will. Sure. It would allow for more flexibility, I think, if we just had a definition.
Well, beat offside, though.
So if you go, I guess my question is there any issue, like in the neighborhood across the street from mine? There's no way they could provide 4 parking spaces for a business. Is there any issue with this low impact business and neighborhoods that naturally will not ever have that ability?
Well, I think it was the thought of the planning commission that there probably are properties within the township that shouldn't have a low impact business due to the lot size or some other constraint with the property. You'll notice that one of the things in the low impact is you have to have at least 7,500 square foot lot to have a home occupation or a low impact business.
How big is?
Well, that's the minimum lot size in the
How
R1
big
zoning
is that?
district.
But is that a quarter?
That's like a 1/6 of an acre.
Oh, okay. Well, they have a 1/6 of an acre
Yeah, well,
Right.
again, it's like any other use in the township. If you can't provide the parking, then you can't do the use. So that's being consistent with how we do everything else in the zoning ordinance.
And in some cases, we got houses that size.
Yeah, sure, and bigger.
So basically what you're saying is nobody can come back and say, you know, this is preventing me from doing my business and yada, 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 yada.
Well, I think
to
what I'm
provide
saying
another
is,
way.
there are some limits. Given the regulations that we've proposed in the low impact, there may be properties that due to size or area available for additional off-street parking, they may not be able to do a low impact business.
And you're aware of this, and everybody's aware of this, as they're going over these
Yeah, sure.
key points, okay?
Let's test it and see what happens. Yeah, we can
No,
always
let's
do
not
it.
say we did.
Yeah, we can always do that.
We've been there, done that. Still there.
So what do you want us to move this to, do you need a motion or just?
Well, the only amendment that I heard was clarifying the number of customer thing, and we can certainly do that pretty easily.
Okay, and then you just need our confirmation of going forward with this? You don't need a motion?
Yeah, you should probably do a motion.
All right, gotcha. Chair, you're
You
on.
want to make that motion?
We don't have to make a motion, you just said that. We have consensus, as long as we have consensus.
I actually recommend that you do make a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now
You
you
make a
just
motion.
changed your mind.
No, he didn't. He said he'd recommended we make a motion.
I move that we move this forward and make the appropriate changes and submit it to, who always submit it to?
CRPC.
Okay, the Center Region Planning, and bring it back to us in the future.
Second.
Second.
Take Bruce.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Contract 24-03 Bollesburg Pike and Old Bollesburg Road paving project, including Bollesburg Pike Bridge membrane installation.
The 2024 operating budget includes $56,000 to pave Bollesburg Pike from Bowl Avenue to Memorial Drive and $50,000 to pave Old Bollesburg Road from Bowl Avenue to the turn at the cemetery. The budget also includes $80,000 to make repairs to the bridge on Bollesburg Pike over Spring Creek. Paving work was consolidated into the base bid, with a portion of the bridge repairs being the membrane installation and paving over the bridge being provided as an alternate bid. Additional bridge maintenance work may be performed later in the year through a separate project. So bids for this project were opened on May 29th at 11 a.m. The low bid in the amount of $117,487.75, which does include the alternate bid, so that would be the membrane installation and paving over the bridge, was submitted by Mid-State Paving LLC of Middleburg. The bid tab and memo from the Township Engineer, Jerry Northridge, are included in the packet. The recommendation is for the board to move to award contract 24-03, Bollesburg Pike and Old Bollesburg Road paving project, including Bollesburg Pike Bridge membrane installation, to Mid-State Paving LLC in the amount of $117,487.75.
I'll make that motion.
Dennis moved. Have a second?
Second.
Tracy second.
Have a question. The note on the bottom, it notes mathematical correction by staff.
Yes.
Give me some background on that, because typically when that occurs, all the bidders need to be told about that change.
I believe, Deb can
Did
correct
that-
me if I'm wrong, I
did that
believe that
occur?
that was all the bidders were informed that
There's a change somewhere?
the low bid, ultimately this, what happened was their bid for the asphalt was wrong. It was supposed to be the same on both the alternate and the base bid. As far as I'm aware, all the companies that bid were made aware that there was a correction made. We informed the company that there was an error in their bid, and they were willing to move forward with it, with us correcting that. So, because it did reduce the price down by $2,000 some odd dollars.
Did the other three vendors agree to that, or?
I don't believe they need to agree to that in this particular case, because they were still over what the
Okay.
bid amount was, and we informed the low bidder, and they certainly could have rejected that, and then we could have
Okay.
looked at the next lowest bidder.
I've seen cases though where that's occurred the other vendors weren't alerted to the change, and then it'd be a court issue that changed the whole relationship. So if it did change low bid, we're okay.
Right, I don't believe it changed a little
Okay.
bit, it just made it
Okay.
lower.
Just a safeguard.
No.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Moving on, Community Diversity Conference sponsorship.
So the Community Diversity Group will be holding the Community Diversity Conference at the Penn State Hotel and Conference Center on Tuesday, June 25th. The conference aims to enhance community relations, increase awareness about diversity issues prevalent in our communities, and to improve the overall social climate of Center County, Central PA. The township sponsored this biannual conference at the $500 sponsorship level in 2022. A sponsorship of $500 or more provides one conference registration and inclusion of the township logo on the organization's website and conference programs. Several other Center Region municipalities are sponsoring the event. And Chair Wilson asked that this be put on the agenda for discussion. So if you are interested in sponsoring that, please let me know and I can sign up the township as a sponsor of the event.
I would like to know, I mean, $500 is $500, and I'd like to know exactly what the outcome of this conference is, like a little bit more about the outcome, what their goals are in this conference.
Who went last year for us?
It was 2 years ago, I
I
believe.
went
It was
2
the
years
last time
ago.
they held it. It's every other year they hold it.
Oh, did it?
So
Okay.
Nigel, you went?
Well, there were a number of workshops that the attendees could go to learn more about what different groups, nonprofits basically, are doing to encourage and promote diversity and acceptance in the Center region. It was fairly informative.
But does it do anything for us? What does it bring forth to us, to bring forth to our community? What does it do to help our community?
Well, one of the things I'll tell you is in this we learned about alternatives to just calling the police when there's an issue, like a domestic issue or something. There's other groups that could be called for, to keep the police out of it and make it a little lower key. Restorative justice approach to things instead of punitive. It's interesting. Society is a long way away from, really getting into that, but I think it's worthwhile information, and a lot of attendees, like majority of attendees, are in local government or school district or who knows, and I think it's just an opportunity to educate people.
But how do we bring, I guess the question I have is how do we bring that information, like you said, alternatives to calling the police? How does a person in this neighborhood up here or these citizens that we have around here have any idea that there's an alternative, and how do we get that information to them? If we're doing this, how do we get this there?
Whatever information we get, we certainly put on our e-news website about alternatives to police, for example.
And the community the community diversity group, how do they reach out to the different peoples of this, the Center County or whatever, how far they reach? How do they reach out to these people and get information? Because I guess my problem is I can tell you now that I've not heard about this, nor have I received information about this, and I'm not the most informed person, I grant you that, but I mean, I'd like to know that there's a means to an end, that one person goes, and that's fantastic, but what are we bringing into our township for this? And I think that that's an important thing. I mean, I agree with you that I think the information is good coming out, but if we're doing something without bringing it to our township, then what are we doing?
Well, let's bring it to our township, whoever goes.
Then
You
we-
want to go?
Do I want to go?
It's a good conference. It's a good conference. I'm not sure I can make it this year. Yeah, Frank.
Well, every time I hear this diversity, inclusion. If you remember, we had the discussion when we did our inclusion proclamation. It just goes through me like a knife. We live in probably one of the most diverse areas in the country. We get along. We talk to our neighbors. We don't call the police. We take care of each other. We have a great community. And every time I see this, it's like we're slapping our neighbors in the face because we don't think they're doing it good enough. And I happen to think our neighbors are great and they do a good job of this. I'm kind of looking at this, what's $500 going to get us? And except that everybody that goes there can pat themselves on the back and say how great they are. I would assume take that $500, close the street, and have everybody come out and say hello to each other. I mean, that to me would be a bigger step towards diversity than have a bunch of people come in and talk about it. Because that's what happens. They talk, and they go and they have free lunch, and then they come back and you wait 2 years and do it again. So I'm not really sure what we're going to get out of this, and I would sooner just keep promoting our neighbors to be good neighbors. And I just happen to think Harris Township is one of the best places in the world to live, and we have good neighbors, and we have a diverse population. We have probably a lot of diversity here that you're not even aware of. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on it. I mean,
Okay.
if it's like she said, it's $500. If you want
Thank
to,
you.
do it, fine.
You
But I just
kinda
don't
hit-
see the advantage to it.
You kind of hit what I was saying in a more direct manner.
I think the distribution of the results falls upon the diversity group with respect to how they do that.
Well, I
How
guess
how they plan on doing it.
Well, I guess I don't know.
I
how
don't
they
either.
plan to do it,
So-
nor do I, like I said, nor have I ever heard about this previously. Like, and I said, I'm not the most informed person, but I should at least I don't know what they're planning on doing to enhance, and I agree, with Frank.
I think that I think if we look beyond the immediacy of Harris Township to our surrounding communities, which we are a part of, there are people that don't feel that they're totally respected or appreciated, and we have acts of hate and stuff that occur, not necessarily in Harris Township, but in the region. I was asked that if we're not going to do this, what would we do? Frank mentioned getting everybody out on the street. Well, that sounds like a good idea. But you know what? I would suggest that if we're not going to do this, we ought to do something that's, and I'm not a big fan of just feel-good stuff and feel-good statements. And God, when we went through that diversity thing the last time around, that was tough. It was just like trying to balance so many things. But it is an issue in a larger area, and if there's something else we can do to make this world a little better place, let's do it.
I mean, I agree with you about that, but the thing that I don't, like, I think the problem is, I agree, people go to things like this and they, for whatever reason, this group does not, they do their job in educating a single person or 2 people or 10 people or whatever, and that's fine. But, to me, it's their job to get it out here. Maybe they should be the ones coming in front of the township. Maybe they should be the ones coming, because if it's mostly government officials who go to these things, why have I not even heard or seen them or, in the past 4 years since I've been coming around? I guess that's the problem. If you're going to be a community diversity group, why are you not going to the communities? So,
Well, there's a good, if I may interrupt, Tracy, that's maybe what we want to do is invite someone to come to us and make a presentation to our board, where we'll be seen by the people that watch us on CNET or whatever, and just, that gets the information out to our community.
yes, I would love that. I would really like that, for them to come to us and talk to us about what they do and how, give us a presentation of what we can do to help, rather than, let's get this out instead of just kind of staying in one place.
And to the point I brought up, maybe what you're talking about, Bruce, there is we bring them out, but we also, maybe we move to the fire hall and invite the public. you know, for people in the
That
public
would be
to
nice.
come and just get a presentation for everybody. And I would be more in favor of that than sending somebody to a conference.
I would like that.
That's fine.
That-
That's gonna fall on your shoulders then to do that.
Well, I think what we need to task Mark with is, Mark, call this group up and see what they have available. You know, tell them what we're thinking and see if they've got a road show or whatever you want to call it that would come on the road.
Yeah, it's not one group, it's organized by Penn State.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, maybe have Penn State come
number
on.
of
Have a
groups
representative,
involved,
have a couple
you know.
representatives come.
So I think that's what we need to check into, Mark, and see if
Yeah.
they can, you know, come up with
And
something.
I also think that if we could buy into what they're doing and we could recognize what they're bringing to us, I think that going to a conference may be warranted. But I feel like I want them to come to us so we can be open and we can.
I mean, some groups could come to us. I mean, again, there's so many people involved in this, and, you know, it is a community-wide thing, and I don't know who all is going. I know a number of elected officials went last time, a number of Penn State people go to this as part of their employment, probably. No, I just personally think, you know, $500 is a worthwhile contribution to show that, you know, we believe that diversity is important, diversity and inclusion is important, and, you know, getting it out there that we support them.
So
is
maybe
a
our
good thing.
sponsorship should be, we would like you to come and give the township a presentation for our sponsorship. I mean, maybe that's a better option.
We would do the 500 if they come here
Yeah, and bring us a presentation to our community.
for the 500.
I would be more willing to do that.
My guess is if you know, even if you donated or not, if you reached out to some of these organizations that are involved in this, you could probably get some easily to come to the community and talk. They'd be excited, well be excited about it, but,
I don't have a lot of background on this group, to be honest, but to Nigel's point, it does look like there's a lot of different groups that are working on trying to promote community diversity that are going to be in attendance and speaking. I'm certain if you wanted to hold our own kind of Harris Township Diversity Conference here in the fire hall, it's something we could put together. I think this conference, though, to Nigel's point, you're sponsoring that for that conference. They would probably be also willing to come out and speak to something that we are sponsoring as well.
I don't know if we really need to sponsor anything. I just would prefer, I just don't see the use of somebody going to this conference unless there's a means of bringing it to the people. There seems to be no means of bringing it to the people. So I guess the problem I have is I'd like them to come to us so that we can offer it to the people. So we can say, this group is coming and doing a presentation for us. Please feel free to come, to learn about more diversity in our community and how we can help with diversity in our community, rather than just one person going and really nothing changes in Harris Township. And there's no knowledge going to Harris Township. That's fine that it's me go to College Township or Penn State, but this is for Harris Township, not for that area. And I just don't see us being able to convey what we're bringing, and where are we going if we can't convey it to our township?
I'd be willing to sweeten the deal and offer them $1,000.
I don't know if
To
I'd
do
go
what?
that far. We have to watch our P's and Q's. Gotta watch our budget.
the COG Executive Committee voted to support it at the tune of $1,000 for the COG.
No wonder our budget goes high.
Yeah, right. Well, it's kind of interesting because the COG didn't support it before, but other municipalities did. I know other municipalities already have put their support in.
Okay,
So
why
that's
don't
I'm
we
bringing
do
up.
this? Why don't we do this? Since we went last time, let's give it one more shot, and whoever goes, their charge that we're gonna give them is they come back with an idea of something we can do in our township for our
Agreed.
people. In other words, not just go there, pay attention and come back, but pick up some flyers, whatever, so that we have something that we can bring, or finding somebody that's willing to come out, whatever. But if we're gonna do it and somebody's gonna go, let's give them a charge that they bring something back to the township that we can provide for the residents.
Agreed.
So I think that's, go ahead.
My hesitation is that I could go to that conference. That doesn't make me someone who would do a good job leading the discussion here in Harris Township. It would educate me. I don't think handing out some flyers for stuff is, that's kind of more this. So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's, I'd like to see them or somebody out of that group step up and offer to help us do a better job. And yeah, I'd be, available. I'd be happy to go to the conference. But again, I don't feel like I'm the right person to take the lead on doing that. I'd come back with some more education, but I don't think I would be the one to stand in front of a room in the fire hall and lead that.
I think basically somebody has to go. I don't think it's ours to lead a discussion. I think it's our job. Like, I think a phone call needs to be made, first of all, to find out exactly what this involves. And I think then after that, if we do decide to send somebody, that person needs to be tasked with getting in touch with some of the organizers of this event, saying, hey, look, we want a better means to spread this to our community. If we cannot have a means to spread this to our community, then we can't do this anymore. And the means we're looking for is somebody to do a presentation to start with, somebody to do a presentation to the board, not us, but somebody to do that presentation to the board and inviting the public in so that they can also hear that presentation. But a phone call, I think, has to be made first to find out exactly, if that even can be done. Because if it can be done, do we really even want to be involved with this?
I'm sure it can be done, and I'm sure there'd be people that would be willing to come to our meetings if we wanted to do it that way and advertise.
Well,
So we have somebody come in
Bruce,
person.
I didn't mean that you would have to be the one doing the presentation. I was looking more for a facilitator.
It seems to me that we've got some kind of consensus here about let's support this conference this year, but ask that they give a little bit back to us to help us, help bring it home to Harris Township.
I agree.
Agreed.
You want to make that into a motion just like that?
Yeah.
Sure. So moved.
Okay. You have a motion and a second, and that includes supporting this conference to the tune of $500, which gives us one person to attend. Anyway, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, on to manager's report.
All right, well, I wanted to first make a report that's not in writing. We did have the Arbor Day event on Saturday at Blue Spring Park. It was very well attended. We had about 45 people show up to watch a river birch get planted in Blue Spring Park. And there's going to be a video on YouTube that you can watch to see how to plant a tree properly. So,
Did Gina cover that?
no, it actually was one of the members of the Lions Club came and did a video of it. I wasn't aware they would be doing that, but it turned out wonderful. So then I wanted a few items on the manager's report I needed some feedback on. The first one is item number 1, which is about the agricultural security area needing to be updated. That has to be updated every 7 years. We're in that start of that 7th year. Last time we had an advisory committee that was comprised of 5 members, 1 board member who serves as chair, a citizen residing in the township, and then 3 active farmers. Their names are listed here in the manager's report. I just would like some direction from the board as who you would like to have serve on that committee. I'm happy to contact the folks who did it last time to see if they'd be interested in serving again. I know, Denny, you've expressed an interest in
I
that.
have some new suggestions.
I was gonna make the suggestion that Denny does it because he's done it twice
Here's,
before, at least twice
Here's
before.
14 years worth of work right here, so. I've got
I agree
everything
with
ready to
that
go.
one. You don't
And-
want that.
And the data that will come out of the COG building with respect to the 10-acre issue
Right,
That's all taken care of.
yes.
And as far as those 4 people, I think every one of them has interest in that. I think, yeah, I would contact them and see if they want.
Well, there's a couple new ones too that
Okay.
have gotten into the agriculture industry that we can talk to.
Okay, do you want to give me any names of folks that
The
would?
Harding family,
Okay,
they've just built a very large new animal facility.
Okay.
The Nittany Farm Group,
Mike Emmett?
Mike Immel?
Mike Immel.
Yeah.
I was trying, I didn't have his first name. There are a couple of new 10-acre splits that have occurred out in our area. They're probably not ready to do that yet. But add the Harding and the Immel group to it.
Okay.
Any other ideas for
Well,
new
and the other thing I was gonna say
new
is,
farmers?
since we're gonna put you on as the chair, you go ahead, you and Mark work out who
we
you
can
want
work
on
that
it.
out.
But I'm comfortable with those guys and everybody you mentioned, so just put a committee
Any
together.
suggestions for community people? We only need one.
Well, Katie was pretty good last time.
I'm not sure Katie's around anymore.
Yeah, she is.
Yes, sure.
Is she?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, she lives right up on,
Bailey Lane.
Bailey?
Bailey Lane, yeah.
I haven't
Okay.
seen her for a while, but yeah.
The
I
first
just saw her
time,
the other week.
the-
her and him
the
and-
person we used the first time, she's still there too, yeah.
Okay.
She's the Patton Township
You need me.
Parks.
Park.
Oh, Susan Wheeler?
Susan Wheeler's still
Yeah.
around too, so
Yeah. Okay.
we can test her
All right.
while we're on that one.
Well, the board's comfortable with Denny and I working out
Yep,
that committee. we'll do that.
Absolutely.
Sounds good to me.
The second item on the manager's report is I'd like to consider having or the board to consider having a strategic planning work session later this month or in July. I've done some financial assessment of the township I wanted to go over and also talk about some long-range goals with the board. What I wanted to know was, are you okay with the idea of maybe meeting during the day, and are there certain times or days of the week I should avoid? Just because it's gonna be a work meeting, we can hold it at any time, we just need to advertise.
So what, the second Wednesday?
Well, the second Wednesdays of the month for both June and July are when I plan my vacations, because those are the 2 weeks of the month I typically have the ability to take off.
Can we move it up to like the third Wednesday?
We could always,
I don't know what that, I don't know
that's
what day-
normally my Parks Committee meeting. I have Parks Committee
Oh,
here. with our
okay.
parks.
I
Doesn't
prefer
even-
the fourth Wednesday because I'm going to Spain at some point.
You're gonna what?
I'm going to Spain at some point during July.
Parks meet in the evening?
They do meet in the evening at 5 o'clock.
I'd like to be there and
Okay. I'd sooner see it earlier than later, because it's gonna give me help when I go talking to the
Sure.
finance committee.
this month is better for me, definitely.
Okay. So I'm off the last week of the month, so it would have to be sometime next week. Or the very first week in July would be
If
the
you,
next
if you
one.
do
I'll
it,
get
in
you
the-
the very first week in July too.
Okay.
I was gonna say, if you do it in the evenings, we could do it any evening for me.
Sure, yeah, I didn't know if it was preferred to do it over
Whichever.
lunch or
Yeah.
something like that as well. That's why I
Yeah.
asked, since it's summer.
Yeah,
and-
we could do it at Duffy's, you could do wings.
Just go in and hide in a room, yeah.
As long as I have a projector.
I'll definitely,
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
end of June, begin first week of July, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I think the answer to your question is just go ahead and schedule it.
Well, I was gonna
Yeah.
send out a doodle poll
I'm
to
gonna
get
be,
some
I'm
feedback.
gonna be away the end of June too, so
Okay.
around in July would be all right.
Okay.
Maybe,
Does number 3 involve some of the recycling for it?
I believe so. I don't have
Because
that.
we're an integral part of the new contract.
I would have to look and see
Okay.
who's all in that committee, Denny. It's still getting ironed out as far as who's all
Okay.
gonna be. Mimi Cooper's on that.
Okay, good luck. As long as someone says so.
And then, so I'll send out a doodle poll for number 2. Number 4, the sustainability planner, Pam Adams at COG, reached out regarding some potential grant funding that can help with electric car chargers for public use. It's a grant that's available. It can be used for both the chargers as well as electrical upgrades. So when the parking lot was designed last year with the interim manager, they did put conduit in, but they never planned for an actual service upgrade. So for us to put in any type of car chargers, we would actually have to do an additional service upgrade to add capacity for those chargers.
Well, and my question is, does this grant cover that?
It would cover the upgrade, yes, but we'd have to pay for 20% of the a match. So my question to the board is, if you're interested in pursuing these charging stations, I can look at getting estimates on the potential costs. I didn't want to spend a lot of time looking into this because I know that there's annual fees related to having a service contract for the chargers, and you don't have any idea of how much they'll get used either. They're
I would
level
say-
2 stations.
I
so-
would say put it on your long-range plan, do it, but don't drop everything and do it. But yeah, we would need numbers to look at it before.
Well, I
we
think the
could go.
grant needs to be done by September. That's why I wanted to know. It's a
Well,
short term.
well, like I
turnaround.
said, don't stop everything you're doing.
Okay.
But until we see the numbers, we can't say yes or maybe because of our budget.
Sure.
Well, 20% for cost for installing and doing the upgrade. It's a good deal.
Well, yeah, if
No,
it's
you
not,
don't
if
want
it's not $1 million,
Yes,
we don't have
yeah.
200,000.
Slip, but I don't know, you know,
Well,
I
that's
mean,
why we have to get some information.
we're.
I know the
things are going-
chargers.
Things are going electric sooner or later, I mean, let's face it, and, getting ahead of the,
Well, I
getting
guess,
ahead of the curve here.
I guess my question in the whole thing is with the new technology that's gonna come out, and you're looking at this new technology, is it going to be such that we put these in with a grant, spend 20%, then all of a sudden, 2 years down the line, we have to redo it because of the new technology coming out? I mean, we need to really think about that as well. Yeah, sure, we're moving more electric, then again, how are we gonna charge people for these chargers? Or is like Mr. Smith across the way gonna come every night and charge a car on our bill, our tab? So there are things that we have to consider regardless, and I would like to know, with this new technology, are we planning on being able to use the same chargers?
I do know that with the chargers that are available through CoStars, they are ones that you have to have a service contract with the developers, third company who provides basically the payment methodology for it and service contract for your
They're
chargers.
the
So-
ones that bring money back to the town
Right.
after their cost.
So folks wouldn't be able to just come over and plug in for free.
Right.
They would be paying a fee for it. It could be a resident, could be somebody traveling through. But ultimately, I don't know how much they would be used and how much it would have to be used in order to get our service costs back. That's really
Well, yeah, I
the
think we need to
unknown.
know that as well.
And that's what I can look into. I know that I don't think these cost an awful lot of money. I don't know how much the service upgrade would cost.
The service upgrades, we have to do it one way or the other, that technology's not gonna change for that.
It's gonna be
We
expensive.
just need more amps.
Yeah, we only have 200 amps for the new panel that was put in the office. We would probably need another 200 to
For the new
support it.
technology.
Well, to support these level 2 chargers, yeah.
I don't know.
I can look into it if you want. I mean, I won't spend a ton of time on it, but
Don't spend a ton of time on it.
I can at least get some preliminary numbers, and then if you wanted me to go deeper, I go deeper. Look more.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've got some information to Pam on that one too.
Okay.
That's a $50,000 program.
Right.
Grants up to 50,000 can be awarded to help municipalities.
That was-
And it wouldn't be anywhere near that, so it's a 20% part of that.
And the last thing I'll note on my report is just number 10, that I'll be out of the office June 24th through the 28th for a family vacation. I will try to check my emails periodically, though, during my time off, just to.
Vacation?
I have a question.
I know, I am. Yes.
Number 8.
Yes.
How are we doing with Country Place Park? How are we doing with making sure that's better?
We went out and did a walk with the Parks Committee and the Parks Director and the Parks Maintenance Superintendent. I'm not sure that's his official title. We did a walk through, talked about a few areas that we wanted to see some improvements. One of the issues was where they did some clearing and grubbing the other year, or invasive removal the other year. Our crews did. It wasn't cleared and grubbed so that it could be planted in seed. And Parks and Rec just goes through with a brush hog once a year typically. Now they have agreed to go through more regularly with that brush hog. But we also talked about some of those areas where it's coming back with invasives. We're going to go in with our crews and actually clear it out so we can seed it, and then they will start mowing it. We also talked about, I think Frank has pointed out, there's been times where someone's been pushing picnic tables with the lawnmower and possibly damaging them. That's something that they said is already against their policy. They're going to talk to their staff about that.
Perfect.
Generally when we were there, it looked okay, but it also was kind of still early in the spring. So we're just going to keep an eye on it here over the summer. And, they've kind of agreed to take and redouble their efforts on that part and making it best they can. Now, when we put in this walking path, I'm hoping that's going to also help to kind of better delineate where we have kind of natural areas versus kind of maintained portions of the park.
Got a question for you. There are roadwork signs on Rush Valley Road.
Okay.
Is that the beginning of the no parking installation?
There's roadwork signs? I don't know.
Warning signs.
I don't know that we would have put up roadwork signs.
That's right near the intersection of Rock Hill and Rush Valley.
That may be PennDOT related. They may be going through, or no, maybe
No,
not.
it can't. It's on
No.
Township Road.
Trying to remember. I don't know, to be honest with you. We are putting up those signs. We did receive them.
We did.
Yeah, we did. We actually put the ones up in our parks as well from the ordinance you
Okay.
passed last year that you can't park in a park overnight. But
I noticed the sign today,
Mhm.
and
Excuse me,
curious where it came from.
Mark.
Yes,
I think our crews were out brush hogging today.
brush hogging. Okay.
In
Brush Valley?
anticipation of the signs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if we got the no parking signs, we're up to about 14 months late, so keep working on it.
But they're going to get up for the future.
I shouldn't be allowed to sit next to you.
And the parking issue is still there. The contract is
Okay.
still parking.
If there's any other questions, I had nothing else I was going to highlight, but if there's any other questions or comments.
Number 7, the storm pipe issue. Is there a specific location in the township that we're working with College Township?
We have multiple locations that, and we're just piggybacking off of
Okay.
College's contract. We have multiple locations that we're going to have cleaned out, just that have been silted in and need to be inspected to see
It's part
that.
of the Act 167 program.
Yeah. We
Okay.
just need to be maintaining our pipes so that they're
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
functioning
Okay.
properly. Yep.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, approval of vouchers is next. So we'll be voting to approve or not $308,000, $204.33 from this month's vouchers.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve vouchers number 2024-05 for $308,204.32.
A second.
Okay, any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Got one. Why do we have 2 West Penn power pages? 2187 and 2228. Because 2 months are running so close together?
That's possible.
They both have 16 meter reads.
Yeah, it's possible that we were paying, I'd have to look into it to see when those checks were actually cut, but that's likely what it is that we had 2 different months.
Close
Close enough where
proximity of
yeah.
payment to generate 2, okay.
Right.
Still strange why we can't get one bill from them.
Okay,
Yeah.
my question is number 2182 on the first page. It says replace UPS, and then it says Kaharchik Construction Incorporated for 33.9. What is replace UPS?
That's a power supply in one of the control boxes for our
Okay, that's
traffic
not-
signals.
That's not UPS, the brown trucks.
No, we had a power supply, backup power supply that was bad in one of our control boxes for a light. I think it's Mary Elizabeth
And
light.
then I had one other question, comment, whatever. I see on here, and I see it often, Donnie, he bought flowers and we reimbursed him, and then he bought some oil dry. I know we have a credit card, the manager, and do we have a credit card for maintenance that we wouldn't have to have our employees using their own money and then reimbursing them? I mean, why couldn't we have one?
We don't. He could have used the township's card though.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can't remember if he just didn't grab it because he was out and about and decided, hey, while I'm here, I'll get these because the township, he needed to buy them anyway.
All right. Well, I was just curious because, we don't want our employees to use, we don't want them funding us.
No, they always have the option of using the township credit card as long as they just check with me first.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
All right, that's all I had.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, well, all in favor of approving the vouchers, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Okay, COG committee reports, so we'll start with me, executive committee, and of course, last month we set the agenda for the general forum. We also had some discussion about the process of and how we're coming along with the executive director recruitment. And the executive committee's met a couple more times regarding the recruitment process, including one interview so far last Friday.
How did that interview go for you?
What's that?
How did that interview go for you?
Went very well.
How did you like the person who was interviewing?
I liked him a lot.
How do you think his qualifications were?
I thought his qualifications were right there, where we need somebody. And he had the energy and obviously the drive to do what we need him to do.
Does he understand the task as compared to the two different, quite different, leaders of COG?
It is interesting. Shouldn't go through a whole lot of detail here because it's one candidate, but he has experience in intermunicipal, a lot of experience with intermunicipal cooperation, shall we say.
Okay,
I'll leave it there.
okay, understood.
But, so anyway, Human Resources Committee did not meet this month. Climate Action and Sustainability, we just met midday today. So we had some updates on work tasks. Let's see. Yeah, like, pretty much we have a AmeriCorps position that'll be coming on for a full year, which is going to be really good. That's for wait a second. Non-service corp. Okay. Wait a minute. CR. Oh, we've been approved as a host location, so CRPA will begin advertising for a position. That's where we're at. Okay, I'm a little fuzzy on that. And some updates on the refuse and recycling contract, and that pretty much covers it for today. So next will be climate action. Oh, that's me. Facilities Committee, Dennis, and your other ones as well.
We talked about the one grant opportunity. There's another one coming. It's a fund to purchase electric vehicles and to assist in installing the infrastructure for charging stations. That's called the Alternative Fuel Incentive Grant Program. That's a 50% match. The other one, as Mark was talking about, is the Municipal Opportunities for Retrofits and Energy Efficiency. That's a $50,000 program. So we're proceeding with that one. We'd spent then some time talking about the parking lot information. And tied into that is the installation of some charging stations at the COG building that we should think about if we're going to do the parking lot, think about including the charging stations, and sort of gave Walt the okay to proceed in getting some more information on that. They're dealing with a parking lot cost of $115,000 to $120,000. Harris Township owns part of the parking lot, part of the building, so it's something that we need to be taking care of. Far from approved yet, but it's in talking stage.
I have a question. I have a question.
Sure.
How do you feel about the vote to do the study or hire the company to come up with a long-term plan for our facilities?
You mean the one that was approved?
Yes. How do you feel about that? Do you feel it was appropriate, or do you feel that it's premature, or do you feel like that we need a facilities coordinator, or whatever, administrator, whatever you want to call this person, before we have this?
My comments at that meeting was that there are 3 players in that program. A new director, a COG facility coordinator, and this person, and that's why I voted against it.
Okay.
And
Well, how close are we?
I know, the rest of us voted against it too.
Yeah, but how close are we to getting a new coordinator? Are they even talking about it? Is it out there?
I don't believe it's been listed. I thought they said they were holding off on recruitment until the executive director recruitment was resolved.
was my
Okay,
thinking,
so
yeah.
it will be out there.
At some point. Yeah, I just don't, the timing, I don't think we
But
know.
they-
I don't think the timing is right to approve that contract without having
Okay.
a person in COG solely responsible for that project. It can't be the ED because we're getting a new one. it should not fall on the agency directors because they're busy now. So I like the concept of the $47,000 project. I don't see how those pieces are gonna come together
I don't either.
without having someone there to do it.
Because I think that somebody would dictate the direction of that project. I think now it's just willy-nilly out there, like, oh, this needs done, that needs done. But if we have somebody directing it, then we would get a lot more knowledge from it. Okay, I was just wondering that, thank you.
And I think we all voted against it, and the Half Moon Township individual voted against it, so it was a 6-1, 6 something,
Well,
6 or 7
I
votes.
think it was like, we lost by a third. There was 2/3 for and 1/3
Yeah,
against. But I was really, in my opinion on that, I was voting more, against the process. Because this happens all the time. We show up at a meeting and, oh, by the way, we gotta pass this tonight and we gotta do it now, and then where did it come from? It doesn't go through the committee process, so. that was-
The land use, the Lucy Committee spent the whole meeting, reviewing the, community survey that is being done by our two local planners. And we will see a rewrite of that, probably in 2 weeks. And then we'll be proceeding with, distributing that to the, community, together with, about 7 sites in Harris Township that will receive information about the survey. That's what we have, that's what we talked about.
So anything on solar power?
We have no update.
Okay.
Did we? You didn't get anything, did you? I didn't either, so. Nothing. We should be meeting last Wednesday, whatever day that is.
26th,
26th, yeah.
I believe,
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Bruce, you're up for Parks Capital and Governance and Parks Authority.
Well, Parks Capital did not meet. Parks Governance did not meet. I'll update you just briefly on where that process is. There's pretty much a general consensus. And I hope this intervening time that we didn't meet is being used to put forth some recommendations for what the changes should be made to the bylaws for the authority and to the revised structure of committees. I will say that there is a fairly strong consensus amongst our neighboring municipalities that there needs to be a committee from COG of elected officials that will have some not oversight, will have some involvement in looking at what the park operations. And it appears to be that they would like to have periodically, maybe quarterly, a joint meeting with the park authority. Devil's in the details. I'm anxious that it is made clear that they're invited as an informational process so they can ask questions and gain information and bring back to their initial municipalities. The thoughts of these municipalities that are in favor of this is that they have fiduciary responsibility for the monies that their residents' taxes are going towards the park operations, and they would like to, be at the table periodically to be able to ask questions themselves and get those answers. I'm not particularly in favor of it, but I think that's what's going to happen. So the details are kind of important because the park agency can't have two masters. And right now, the authority is the body that is providing direction for them, and by the Authorities Act should be providing direction to them. So we need to make sure that this additional committee that's formulated is an information gathering committee and not an oversight committee. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I'd be glad to hear them. You don't have to put them forth now. The Center Region Park Authority, I guess the biggest piece of news is that the Millbrook Marsh projects are essentially done and signed off on. So the two new buildings are complete and substantially complete and signed off on, and that project has been completed. And Whitehall Road Regional Park is getting close. There continues to be little things here and there. As far as I know, there's nothing coming down the pike that's going to bust the budget.
We did the tour of Whitehall Park. Very impressive operation.
It is. And the next thing that comes up with that is we have additional money from the loan that we've already voted to make available. What is it going to be spent on? We've looked over, you heard at the last General Forum meeting, 4 options put forward. And the general opinion of the authority is 3 of those options make no sense at all. And the only one that really does make sense is to build that not all season pavilion, but probably 3-season pavilion. We have a $75,000 grant from DCNR that we would be throwing away if we didn't do that. We have a $195,000 private donation for that project that we'd be throwing away if we didn't do that. Essentially, it's the only one that makes sense to go forward with. The plans have been done largely. It's like they like to say, shovel ready and on budget. And so we were asked to recommend, the authority was asked to recommend a prioritization of those 4 options. The authority voted to unanimously support only the one. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, Frank, finance first and then keep on going.
Finance, we did not meet. We meet this Thursday, so we haven't met since the last time we met. State College Area Connector, we have a thing with PennDOT on Wednesday.
Wednesday, isn't it? Next Wednesday?
11 o'clock. 11 o'clock this Wednesday.
Here?
Here.
Is that a joint part of Township here or something?
No, they just asked to present to you, just to give you an update.
And then shortly thereafter, there will probably be a public meeting for the township, but they'll
Are they
put it out.
doing one with Powder also?
I am not aware if they are. I would imagine so, but they didn't share that information.
So basically, that's where we're at. It's basically, they're entering the NEPA phase, so they've gone out and taken some measurements. They're gonna tell us a little more accurately what's going on. Then MPO, we didn't meet, we meet the end of the month. Now, we did have our safety meeting, last month, and we talked, in the safety meeting, we have to, have a safety committee, subcommittee that basically looks at all the roads and what can we do to improve safety, with roads where we get ratings of the best one. And we have to look at all the, statistics that the National Highway is looking for, you know, number of casualties, number of deaths, number of this, number of wreck, and put money towards the ones that are the most dangerous. And the safety committee kind of takes all that together and kind of makes some sense out of it for the regular MPO. So they were there, and that was the one where I brought up about what I talked about earlier, you know, that the legislators, PennDOT needs to talk to the legislators to start talking about what are we going to do about people that are walking around in a daze, so to speak. So, but that's kind of what we're going on, and MPA will meet the end of this month.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
The question we need to ask Wednesday is the status of the surveying on 45. I suspect you've seen them out there too. The last 2 to 3 weeks have been
Are you
surveying.
talking about the $3 million study?
Well,
Yeah.
they're doing something in surveying on 45.
That's part of the money we got when
Okay.
they canceled the connector. They gave us $3 million to do that. That's some of the safety studies they're doing.
But they
They'll come
didn't-
back with that and give us
They didn't
recommendations.
give it to us, they just reassigned.
They're just doing it right now.
Yeah.
So we don't, they'll come back at some point with their findings and what they want to do. And then we gotta fund it.
Okay, thanks. Tracy, public safety.
The meeting was canceled for tomorrow, So I'm wondering when we're supposed to do stuff. So, but anyway, we did meet, at Lifelink, and we were presented basically with all the, ambulance services and some of the other services that are offered in the area. This is the second time I've heard Lifelink speak, and probably, no, maybe the third. And, they are highly concerned about funding. I know that College Township is asking for a line item for them. His comment was, well, a certain place in Pittsburgh that they have mills that they put towards the ambulance service, which I don't agree with either. My comment to him was, I asked, have they run a campaign for donations? The library is very well funded from their campaign for donations. I'm not sure why Lifelink is not having a campaign with, like that to begin with. And in addition, they have troubles collecting, which is like collecting from certain insurances they don't participate with. So, but I still hold off on the thought of putting a line item on or anything else for that matter, because I just think that more needs to be done outside of us. So, and I also get concerned about a couple other things too with Lifelink. We had Memorial Day, Bob Hoffman fell, and we were supposed to have an ambulance available, and it took a long time for them to get to him. It was like a half an hour before they got to him, and he was on the ground. So I don't know what quite happened with that.
I was told the reason why that was delayed was that the ambulance that was here on site was intended to be for anything that was really serious. I guess they wanted to make sure that was available, so that if something were to happen, I guess they'd already assessed that he wasn't in immediate need. But that was what I was told through the grapevine.
Nobody was there. I was there. So
I don't know if anybody on the site, like if there were any firefighters or anything that felt that he was, I don't know, that's just what I was told, that they were, that ambulance that was here was if it was something that they had to rush to, you know.
There was a question, there were a lot of questions about this incident, and it wasn't, as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't investigated properly. We didn't know what happened to begin with. Bob stopped by the other day, but still, that should have been investigated properly, and it could have very well been an emergency. So I question what happened with that. It actually made me kind of angry. You know, I'd like to see some of their response times. I see the response times coming from, you know, the Boulsboro Fire Company. When we get that report, I'd like to see some of their response times, because I've not seen, but I have heard quite a few complaints about their response times. I'm wondering what's going on with that. And one of them was a personal complaint, so.
I think one of the things you could do is bring that up at public safety, and bring that up as an item and get it discussed at public safety. I mean, we ended up, what did we pay, $3,000 to have them here? And they're telling me all they were here for is just in case?
Yeah, like I said, that could have been very serious. They weren't there to assess it, and they weren't. And then second of all, I mean, I've heard two other stories. One of them was personal. My father had an incident. It took them over half an hour to get to the house at 5 o'clock in the morning. And that was an emergency. And then when they got there, the way they handled it was not, I don't know. I don't know. Don't even, I get started, I'm not happy. Not happy. So, yes, I agree with you. I'd like to have reports by them. I'd like to hear a little bit more about their, you know, what's going on. I'd also like to hear a little bit more about their training, the people in their training as well, rather than their need for money. I think that's it on my part.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that okay?
I move we adjourn.
Well, thanks for introducing number 9.
I second.
It's well
And
received.
we're out of here.
Number 9 is well received.